mention of Clark's name as far as getting the message out there. And you see that once again through the quotes here. This is what Napheesa had to say. The amount of money that Caitlin Clark has made the league is insane, and she's getting 0% of it because we have no revenue share. She gets less than $80,000 a year, and she's bringing in like hundreds of millions of dollars. Insane. And yes, that is insane. This is all a little bit more complicated than it seems on the surface, of course. I brought this up before. The ownership pie.
The WNBA just exploded into complete chaos, and Caitlin Clark is right at the center of it all. 2 minutes ago, word broke that Clark reportedly called Napheesa Collier an attention seeker. And let me tell you, this is about to get messy. We're talking about a full-blown war between some of the league's biggest names, millions of dollars on the line, and scandal that could tear the entire WNBA apart from the inside out. Collier has been using Clark's name like a weapon, dragging her into a brutal pay dispute without even giving her a heads up. And now, Clark has apparently had enough. This isn't just drama anymore. This is personal. The gloves are off, and what happens next could change women's basketball forever. So let's rewind for a second and break down how we got here, because this situation is more complicated and more explosive than anyone could have predicted.
The WNBA, the gift that keeps on giving. I have got to touch on this story. I've been traveling all day. I can't wait to get back to my studio so I can really wild out and get to doing what I do. But in the meantime, between time, we are going to address this whole Napheesa Collier continuing to blast Cathy Engelbert. She's not stopping. It's not over. Now she's name dropping Caitlin Clark again. And I'm starting to think this is becoming like for your own personal gain. You know what I mean? I'm very aware, like, the WNBA called the WNBPA.
Napheesa Collier, Minnesota Lynx superstar and co-founder of the rival league Unrivaled, just dropped a bombshell statement that sent shockwaves through the entire basketball world. She told Glamour magazine that the amount of money Caitlin Clark has made the WNBA is absolutely insane. And here's the kicker. Clark is getting 0% of it. Not a dime beyond her rookie salary of less than $80,000 a year, while she's out here generating hundreds of millions of dollars for the league. Collier didn't hold back, calling the situation insane, and honestly, she's not wrong about the numbers. But here's where things get messy. This isn't just about advocating for fair pay. This is about Collier using Clark as a pawn in a much bigger game, and a lot of people are starting to see right through it. This whole controversy isn't happening in a vacuum. It's about the heart and soul of women's basketball being completely exposed.
Points. Just reference Caitlin Clark. She obviously did that in the midst of her feud with Commissioner Cathy Engelbert, claiming that Engelbert said Clark's endorsements were a result of the WNBA platform. Of course, Engelbert denies that. Collier has brought Clark up again, this as part of the Glamour WNBA series. And in this case, Collier's talking about the insane pay that Clark gets from the WNBA relative to the money that she's bringing in. Obviously, Clark is the best example to use because no one is driving more views, more attendance.
We're watching a financial earthquake unfold in real time, with Commissioner Cathy Engelbert on one side, Collier leading the charge on the other, and Caitlin Clark stuck right in the middle, like some kind of bargaining chip. And the wildest part? This feels like the start of a massive breakdown that everyone saw coming, but nobody was ready for. The WNBA has always had issues with pay, with transparency, with how they treat their stars. But now, with Clark's meteoric rise and the money she's bringing in, all of those cracks are turning into canyons, and the whole foundation is starting to crumble. Now, Collier has been going after Commissioner Engelbert for a while now. This isn't her first rodeo. Remember their initial beef? Engelbert allegedly claimed that Clark's massive endorsement deals were only possible because of the platform the WNBA gave her. Engelbert denied saying that, of course, but the damage was done. This isn't just about what players are getting paid right now. This is a deeply personal, ongoing power struggle between some of the biggest names in the league, and it's getting worse.
Your own personal gain. You know what I mean? I'm very aware, like, the WNBA called the WNBPA out and saying you guys have been lying about negotiations. and about offers. It's a lot going on, and I'm just questioning, is Napheesa Collier doing this for the betterment of the WNBA or for her own personal gain and Unrivaled? We're going to break this down. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit that bell notification. Let's get it. Let's rock, man. Let's rock. You know how we do. Okay. We had Minnesota Link.
Every single public comment. Collier has a track record of calling out the league's higher-ups. So this latest outburst isn't some random emotional reaction. It's calculated, it's strategic, and it's been brewing for a long time. What started as whispers behind closed doors is now a full-blown public war, with Clark being used as the most powerful weapon in Collier's arsenal. So why Caitlin Clark? Why does Collier keep dropping her name over and over again? Simple. Clark is the undeniable magnet for attention, for views, for people showing up to games, for all that money pouring into the league. Collier uses her name because it's the absolute best way to show just how broken the revenue sharing system really is. Players right now are getting hardly anything from the huge profits they're creating, and Clark's insane impact puts this whole issue under a magnifying glass like we've never seen before. Her stats, her draw, her marketability, they're all proof that the system is broken, especially when you look at her tiny rookie salary compared to the empire she's building around her. This isn't just about fairness. It's about a deep...
bringing in. Obviously, Clark is the best example to use because no one is driving more views, more attendance, or more revenue. So when you look at her salary and you make the argument about revenue sharing, which the WNBA players are not getting any or much of, then you start to see where that's crystallized. And Collier's smart enough to realize that sort of, credibility or that sort of impact carries over to the mere mention of Clark's name as far as getting the message out there. And you see that once again through the
fundamental imbalance that could destroy player morale and make everyone stop trusting the league's financial decisions. And Collier knows that using Clark's name gives her argument the kind of weight that can't be ignored. But here's where it gets really complicated. The ownership pie in the WNBA is a tangled mess. It's not a simple 50-50 split between players and ownership like a lot of people think. The NBA owns a massive piece of the WNBA. Then you've got the individual team owners with their own stakes. And on top of that, there's a huge chunk reserved for private investors who pumped vital money into the league when times were tough and the WNBA was struggling to stay afloat. This whole tangled web makes asking for revenue sharing incredibly tricky. And what makes it even messier is that Clark's arrival and the sudden explosion in popularity happened so fast that the league's financial structure just wasn't built to handle it. It's like a gold rush, but there are already way too many hands trying to grab the money that Clark is bringing in. The infrastructure wasn't ready for this boom, and now everyone's scrambling to figure out how to split up a pie that just got 10 times bigger overnight. So the players have this battle cry now. Pay us what you owe her. But the league might push back hard, and here's how. They could argue that this sudden surge in popularity is almost entirely tied to one player. If the WNBA fights against what the players are asking for, they'd use Clark's huge individual impact to suggest that the overall value of all the other players isn't quite as high. And that brings up a massive question. How long can this current boom actually last if it leans so heavily on just one superstar? It's a delicate situation. The league is genuinely worried about setting a precedent by giving out massive individual salaries, because that could completely mess up team budgets and player negotiations across the board. The WNBA needs to prove it has depth beyond just one big name if it wants to survive long term. And that's a tough sell when one player is doing most of the heavy lifting. But the players have a strong comeback ready. League ratings are actually up across the board this year, and here's the key part. Ratings stayed strong, even when Clark was out with injuries for a significant stretch. That shows that the WNBA's growth isn't just about one person. Clark is definitely the catalyst, no doubt about it, but the league itself is gaining traction with a much wider audience. And Commissioner Engelbert herself has said multiple times that a healthy league has to thrive beyond just one superstar. This argument about collective growth is super important for the players because it lets them push back against the narrative that it's all a one-player show. It proves that a rising tide lifts all boats, not just one. And that's the kind of argument that could actually hold weight in negotiations. Now, let's talk about Napheesa Collier's business interests, because this is where things get really interesting. Collier isn't just an athlete. She's a sharp businesswoman and a co-founder of Unrivaled, which is a direct competitor to the WNBA. And get this, her team has reportedly tried to recruit Caitlin Clark multiple times. They know Clark's market value inside and out, and they know it's astronomically higher than anyone else's in the league. So when Collier makes these public statements about Clark's pay, it's not just advocacy. It's a powerful negotiating move. This isn't just a player talking about fairness. This is an executive from a rival league using the unmatched star power of the WNBA's biggest draw to point out massive problems in how the league operates, while potentially helping her own business in the process. The stakes here are way higher than just fighting for player rights. This is about power, control, and the future of women's basketball as a whole. And that brings us to the ethical questions swirling around Collier's approach. Why did Caitlin Clark find out about these explosive public comments at the exact same time as the rest of us? Why didn't Collier go to her directly first? That total lack of private communication, mixed with a huge public spectacle, is what's making people suspicious. It suggests that the main goal wasn't to have a respectful conversation with Clark about the issues. Instead, it looks like it was all about cranking up public pressure and getting maximum media attention. You can argue all day about whether it's okay to use a fellow player as a public pawn, but here's the thing. Collier's strategy is incredibly effective. Her comments about Clark aren't just making headlines. They're forcing this brutal, uncomfortable comparison between the massive amounts of money Clark brings in and her laughably small WNBA salary. It's such a clear, undeniable difference that nobody can just write it off as exaggeration. The truth lands harder when it's tied to an icon like Clark, and Collier knows that. But there's another layer to this that's raising serious questions about Collier's motives. Critics are pointing out that when Caitlin Clark was getting absolutely hammered on the court for 2 straight years, getting fouled relentlessly with barely any protection from officials, hardly any of these outspoken players, including Collier, said a word. Radio silence. But then, the moment Collier herself gets injured, suddenly she's tearing apart the officiating and calling out all the league's bigger problems. This kind of selective outrage, which seems directly tied to her own personal situation rather than consistent advocacy, is making a lot of people question how sincere her current campaign really is. It feels less like genuine activism for justice and more like she's just found a convenient moment to step up when it benefits her. And that selective pattern is seriously undermining the credibility of everything she's saying now. And speaking of timing, let's talk about the negotiation crisis happening right now. There's a major deadline coming up, reportedly in just 4 days. And according to reports, the players aren't even looking at the WNBA's offers. That's not just a tough negotiation. That's a complete breakdown in communication, with one side appearing totally unwilling to budge. So the question becomes, is this a real deadlock, or is all this public outrage fueled by Clark's name actually designed to create maximum leverage or maybe even sabotage any possible agreement? Refusing to even engage with offers hints at a much deeper strategic move. It's not about finding common ground anymore. It's about winning. And the WNBA's future is literally hanging by a thread because of it. Now here's where the narrative shift gets really interesting. At first, a lot of players and media personalities downplayed Clark's individual impact. The messaging was clear. It's not just Caitlin, it's all of us. Everyone contributed to the league's growth. But now that pay negotiations are getting serious, Clark's name is being brought up over and over again, almost exclusively when people talk about why players deserve more money. This massive switch shows an undeniable truth that they all denied before. They're now openly admitting her unique value and using it as a negotiating chip. It's a crystal clear sign that Clark is, in fact, the main reason behind the numbers they're using to demand higher salaries. The facts are speaking way louder than all that earlier talk about collective effort. It's honestly funny how everyone was pushing the "it's not just Caitlin" narrative, but the second they want to get paid, they keep name dropping her. They've been in denial, But now they're strategically using her star power when they need leverage. The hypocrisy is hard to miss, and we can't ignore the elephant in the room. Unrivaled. Collier's competing league is a constant, undeniable part of this entire drama. Her involvement with a direct WNBA rival naturally complicates her role as someone supposedly advocating for WNBA players. Every single thing she says about WNBA pay and conditions can easily be seen as her trying to drum up interest and recruit talent for Unrivaled. This dual role creates a massive conflict of interest. It makes people suspect that her public comments aren't really about honest negotiation or making the WNBA better. Instead, it looks a whole lot like she's trying to undermine the existing league while building up her own. It's a high-stakes chess game for talent and control of the narrative. And Unrivaled knows they've been trying to get Caitlin Clark. They know her value exceeds everyone else's. So using her name in this fight isn't just smart advocacy. It's strategic business. But wait, there's more chaos brewing. On top of the pay dispute, there's another major scandal hitting the league right now. Injury reporting. The NBA has apparently told all 30 of its teams that it's reviewing how they handle injury policies, training, and staff education. This is happening because there are huge concerns about transparency. And it's not just about keeping players safe. It's about the integrity of the entire game, especially with legal sports betting taking off across the country. Shady injury disclosures could lead to serious manipulation and completely destroy the league's reputation. So we're probably about to see a massive overhaul in how player health information is managed and shared publicly. This feels like a deeper problem that's finally being dragged into the light. And the WNBA's history with injury reporting is already under intense scrutiny. It's not just about Caitlin Clark. Players like Dyrus Dantas and Chloe Bibby had injuries that seemed way worse than what the Indiana Fever were publicly saying. This pattern of alleged dishonesty has created a total crisis of trust. The Indiana Fever are definitely going to be one of the teams facing the most intense scrutiny during this NBA-led review. Fans and players deserve honesty about health, and the league's perceived shoddiness in this area just keeps eroding confidence. It makes the entire WNBA scene feel unstable and untrustworthy. And when you combine that with the pay dispute and all the other drama, it's a recipe for disaster. Through all of this chaos, Caitlin Clark is still just trying to navigate her rookie season. She recently showed up at a Lily event with teammates Kelsey Mitchell and Ari McDonald. These public appearances show her lasting marketability and her commitment to the team, even though she's caught right in the middle of this massive pay controversy. Looking ahead, the Indiana Fever's backcourt in 2026 could feature Clark and Mitchell, with McDonald potentially as a strong backup since she's apparently won over the coaching staff. So while the league is tearing itself apart, Clark is quietly building her brand and securing her future. She's proving that her focus stays on the game itself, despite the absolute storm swirling around her. And now, with reports that she's called Collier an attention seeker, it's clear that Clark is done being used as a bargaining chip. This entire wild story, Collier's aggressive accusations, Clark's massive impact, the league's questionable practices, and this brutal financial showdown is literally shaping the WNBA's future right now. It's uncomfortable, it's messy, but it's a necessary moment of truth. It's forcing everyone to ask the hard questions about player value, fair revenue distribution, and how transparent the organization really is when it comes to money and player health. We're about to find out if this leads to a stronger, fairer league, or if it causes even more division and maybe even a complete collapse. But one thing is absolutely certain. The WNBA can never go back to the way things were before. The silence has been shattered. The truth is out there for everyone to see. And Caitlin Clark just made it clear that she's not going to be anyone's pawn anymore.